You made it.
There we go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Tonight is the July 18th, 2023 meeting of the Beverly Planning Board. My name is Ellen Hutchinson. I serve as chair of this board. Before beginning the meeting, I want to announce that this meeting is being recorded by the City of Beverly. Tonight's meeting is also being recorded and broadcast by BevCam, so everybody on their best behavior tonight. Okay? So this will be a partially remote meeting, right? Is that?
Correct.
A hybrid, I guess we call it. And so this open meeting of the Beverly Planning Board is being conducted hybridly or remotely, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, Section 40, adopted on March 29th, 2023, due to the response of the Commonwealth to the outbreak of COVID-19, allowing public bodies to meet entirely remote or in hybrid format, so long as adequate alternative public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. We have the ground rules up on the screen, and we'll just quickly go over them. Just a reminder that the meeting is being recorded, and by participating, you are giving your consent to being recorded. You may turn off your video if you are participating via computer. Kindly mute your microphones or your phones. Mute yourself by clicking the microphone icon at the bottom of the screen, pressing the mute button on your telephone, or by pressing *6 on your telephone keypad. The host may mute you. Please use chat only for technical difficulties and to indicate that you'd like to speak by writing "me" in the chat. Do not use the chat for public comment. Please state your name and address or affiliation before speaking. Please speak clearly, loudly, and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Public comments will be at the chair's discretion unless required by law, such as at tonight's public hearings. With all of that being said, we will move to our first agenda item. And our first agenda item is a subdivision approval not required plan for 0 rear Hart Street. Is there the applicant here or someone here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening. My name is Chris LaPointe. I'm Vice President of Conservation Operations at Essex County Greenbelt. And I'm also here with Jeff Nichols, representing the Leather Lane Trust. The application is for the division of a parcel that Greenbelt owns, creating a Parcel A, a .4492 acre parcel, to be conveyed to the adjacent landowner, the Leather Lane Trust, creating a 2.8525 acre total parcel. The reason for this is essentially clarifying probably a 40-year-old lot line issue and conveying land with the neighbor's barn and other improvements back to them. Not relevant to the application this evening, but we are acquiring additional land from that applicant in the vicinity, so from our standpoint, a net conservation gain. Happy to take any questions if you have them.
Members of the planning board have any questions for Mr. LaPointe? So basically, Mr. LaPointe, just to make sure that we all understand, you're basically shifting the boundary line from right to left, so to speak, adding that square footage to the owner of the larger parcel. It looks like he has some structures that perhaps were on your property and not on his own?
That's exactly correct.
And this would seeks to clarify it.
Exactly.
Access to his property is not affected by this, is that correct?
Correct. Remains unchanged through the end of Leather Lane.
Okay. Anybody else with questions? Okay, with no questions? Oh, go ahead, Derek,
I
sorry.
was just going to ask in terms of, one of the things we have to look at is access to the site. And, currently the access down Leather Lane to the site unobstructed, clear access, any issues or anything like that we should be aware of?
None.
Okay. How about fire department access onto the site?
So this is an existing lot. This is all of these structures have been in place since the 60s. We're simply adjusting a lot line to put all of the improvements that have been out there for quite a long time onto the same lot. So I think the conditions that have been in place that have been adequate for decades remain unchanged.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Going once, going twice? Anyone? Okay. We don't have any board members remotely, right? Not Sarah?
No.
Okay. So that being said, with no more questions from Mr. Lapointe, I would welcome a motion on this, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Flannery.
Madam Chair, I move to endorse the subdivision approval not required plan for 0 rear Hart Street and 22 Leather Lane. The applicant, Leather Lane Trust.
I have a motion by Ms. Flannery. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Beckwith. Discussion on the motion? None? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Our next agenda item is for the 81X certificate for Southwest Rantoul Gateway. Is there anyone here on behalf of the applicant? Oh, Miranda. Attorney
Good evening,
Samasco.
Madam Chair and members of the board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, this application for the 81X certificate is filed for the Rantoul Southwest Gateway project. As you may recall, as part of that project's approval, there was an A&R plan that the board also approved. And that was approved in November of 2022. So we are now getting ready to actually conduct the closing on this project. And the A&R plan is more than 6 months old. So it requires, in order to record it with the Registry of Deeds, a certificate from the board that there have been no changes over the intervening period from its endorsement.
And can you confirm that for us, please?
Absolutely. In fact, you have the same plan is being presented this evening via Mr. Clausen that was endorsed by the board in November.
Okay, this seems like pretty straightforward.
It's the exact same plan, they just didn't file it in time.
It's the same plan, it just didn't get filed in a timely manner, so,
Correct. So what I discussed with Mr. Clausen, and what's typically done is there would be a notation, and it can be handwritten onto the Mylar plan that you have and that was previously endorsed that makes reference to the 81X certificate, and that will be recorded simultaneously with the plan.
all right then. I would welcome a motion on this.
Are we endorsing or approving the 81X certificate?
Endorse. Endorse.
We are endorsing.
Endorse.
Madam Chair, I move that we endorse the 81X certificate for Southwest Rantoul Gateway.
Thank you. Is there a second, please? Seconded by Ms. Flannery. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. We're good.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Madam
you.
Chair.
All right, I would welcome a motion to recess for public hearings, please.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? We're now open for public hearings. Our first public hearing of the evening is the continued public hearing for the definitive subdivision plan for 119 and 119R Rantoul Street and 44 and 46 Pleasant Street. The applicant is Wilso Ventures LLC and Tiny Ventures LLC.
Madam Chair, point of order on this. I don't know that we have a quorum for this one because we're continuing it and Nate wasn't on the board last hearing.
Ooh, good point.
That is a good point.
Yeah, that's what I said, we don't have a quorum.
And here's Rodney.
And here's Rodney.
Yes, right.
All right, Rodney saved us.
Yeah, Rodney and Wayne are on their way.
Huh?
Nate can't participate.
Right, Nate, yep.
Yep.
Thank you, George.
How are you? Good, thanks.
Was Rodney here? Rodney, were you here for the discussion on this the last time?
When did it happen?
I don't know when it happened.
Last month.
Last month? You were not?
No.
Did you view that public hearing?
I did.
You did.
We don't have,
No, we forgot to do that.
Yeah. we didn't do
Oh,
the
this is for,
Certificate.
certificate.
so this was, okay.
This was on the
All
agenda.
right, so you did or you did not watch the video on it?
So I watched a video this was last month?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then I probably didn't see it. Probably didn't see it.
Okay, so we are,
Waiting for
we're waiting, so let's,
Wayne.
Someone start calling Wayne.
for Wayne, yes.
And you rushed all back here. so.
Okay, why don't we set some public hearings while we're waiting? Okay, so let's move on to agenda item number 6.
We need to close public hearing.
Yes, we do.
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right,
I move to close the public hearings.
okay. Recess them, right?
Recess, excuse
Yeah,
me.
thank you.
Recess.
I'll second that.
Second, all in favor? Thank you. All right, so we're back to our regularly scheduled meeting. All right, the first, if for anybody keeping score, it's agenda item number 6. We're setting public hearings. The first public hearing that we need to set is for the definitive subdivision plan for the properties located at 4-6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 Rantoul Street, 26, 28, 28R Cabot Street, and 7 and 9 Cox Court. The applicant is Goldberg Brothers Real Estate LLC. The preliminary plan was filed on November 30th, 2022. The definitive plan was filed on June 21, 2023. I'd welcome a motion to schedule this, please.
Madam Chair, are we
Yes.
looking, there's dates in August and September? Is there a preference?
Is there a preference, Mr. Clausen?
I move to set the meeting for August 15th.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion, please?
Second.
I'm sorry, who was that? George? And there's Wayne. Okay,
It's the 15th of August. Okay?
so the motion is to set the public hearing for this property, or these properties, I should say, for August 15th, 2023. All in favor?
You can.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Ellen.
Derek abstained because he was busy chatting.
No, I have my hand
Did have
raised.
it up.
I did.
Oh, all right, good, I missed it, okay.
I abstained though.
Okay, the next subdivision plan, let's just continue on with this. Definitive subdivision plan for 7, 11, 29 Rantoul Street, 34, 42, 42 and a half, 44 Cabot Street, 8 School Street. The applicant is also Goldberg Brothers Real Estate LLC. The preliminary plan was filed on November 30th, 2022, and the definitive plan was filed on June 21, 2023. I'd welcome a motion on this, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I move that we hold the public hearing on this on August 15th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second on that, please?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Flannery. Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The last of our setting of public hearings is for the definitive subdivision plan for 240, 246, 248 Cabot Street. The applicant is GFP1 Real Estate LLC. It filed its preliminary plan on November 29th, 2022, and it filed its definitive plan on June 21, 2023. I welcome a motion on this, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We'll set that public hearing for August 15th, 2023.
All righty. Could I
Second.
get a seconded by Mr. Beckwith? Discussion on the motion? None? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. I would re-welcome a motion to recess for public hearings.
So moved, Madam Chair?
Second.
Seconded, motion by Flannery, seconded by Beckwith. Discussion? None? All in favor? Okay, we have recessed for public hearings. Our first public hearing is the continued public hearing for definitive subdivision plan 119 and 119R Rantoul Street, 44 and 46 Pleasant Street. The applicants are Wilso Ventures LLC and Tiny Ventures LLC.
Can you just explain to me the quorum
got five
That's
now.
five now.
There's
You have
five
five
now.
now.
1, 2,
One,
3,
two,
4,
three,
5.
4, 5.
Yep.
That was one finger short. At our last hearing, there was a little discussion about whether or not the application was correctly filed. We had identified Mr. Crowley as the applicant, and there was some LLCs that had fallen behind on their statements with the Corporations Division. Mr. Crowley, after the meeting, had a chance to speak to the accountant. The accountant apologized for sort of falling through the cracks regarding some of his filings with the state. He immediately got them back in good standing. And so all of the LLCs are presently in good standing with the Corporations Office of the Secretary of State. And we also filed a clarifying application indicating that the property owners are the applicants. Mr. Crowley has signed the application in his capacity as manager of the LLCs. I think that sort of brings up the signatures.
Right, and I would just add for board members, if you recall that we had asked our city solicitor to weigh in on that. And legal research and discussions suggested that there was some case law to support the idea that once the corrections are made to the LLC filings, it then becomes sort of retroactive. So I'm very comfortable moving forward. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Crowley and your team went to that great lengths, so now it's covered on both ends. So I think that's all set.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the application, this derives from a preliminary plan that we filed in December, and many people recall that Mr. Crowley filed an application to construct a residential building on the 119 and 119R Meineke property in the back parking lot last September, and I think it was approved in October or November of last year. So I know you have some familiarity with the property. The preliminary subdivision plan occupies 4 parcels of land: the 119 Meineke site, the 119R rear parking area, and 46 and 44 Pleasant Street. These are multifamily residential buildings right now. 119 is, of course, the Meineke shop. The definitive subdivision plan is very consistent with the preliminary plan. I'm going to flip through sort of the locus kind of stuff and some test pit information that we did. This is essentially the same existing conditions plan that was filed previously. Shows the 119 Meineke building within this within the parcel. 119R was a site that was filled after Mr. Crowley took ownership of it. He's brought it up to grade and uses it for parking on this Meineke facility right now. The roadway layout is conforming to all of the Beverly rules and regulations. It basically involves bringing in 100 feet of pavement off of Pleasant Street. All of the buildings would be removed under this plan, 111 feet off of Rantoul Street. And again, just to remind ourselves, this is a zoning freeze plan, so the only purpose presumably never gets built. The apartment building that was approved by the planning board last fall is what Mr. Crowley would like to build, and this really just preserves his rights to build that building as planned. We've, in preparing the subdivision application, we've identified, a parcel of land that could potentially be built on here, and then a second lot that comes down and sort of falls behind the roadway here. So lot 1 and lot 2. We were to shade it up a little bit. Here's the building area here in lot 1, here's the building area in lot 2, and here's the street. 50-foot wide right-of-way, 32 feet of pavement, 5-foot bituminous sidewalk on each side, granite curbs, stop signs, handicap crosswalks, all of the necessary improvements, some proposed street trees, again, all conforming to the Beverly rules and regulations. From a utility point of view, we would bring sewer off of Pleasant Street to serve a building in this location, or perhaps up in this area. We also have an opportunity for a sewer to connect on Rantoul Street if necessary. We have drainage tying into an underground connection to the city municipal drainage system here
in the adjacent parkland. We have a looped water line with a hydrant to provide fire protection to these particular buildings. And this plan would result in a reduction in runoff because most of the area is currently paved or roof, and so there's obviously a fair amount of green space in this plan, so there would be a reduction in runoff associated with this layout. We also provided the board with an adequacy of ways, but of course Pleasant Street and Rantoul Street are very significant roadways, and so any commercial development or residential development on Lot 1 or Lot 2 would probably have a reduction in traffic volume as compared to the Meineke shop and the multifamily building at 44 or 46 Pleasant Street. We're not in any Conservation Commission jurisdiction, we're not in a flood zone, and with that I'd be happy to address any questions.
Before we start with questions, I want to make sure the audience understands. This is something that the applicant, Mr. Crowley, is going through for the purpose and the sole purpose and the only purpose of freezing the zoning, okay? Mr. Griffin has just indicated to us that the applicant has zero intention of building this. The law requires for Mr. Crowley to have the zoning that was previously in existence before the city changed its zoning earlier this year, that it requires applicants to file what's called a preliminary subdivision plan and then a definitive subdivision plan. It's all of these kind of crazy steps that the applicant has to take for the sole purpose of freezing the zoning. I can't emphasize enough that the applicant has told us, Mr. Griffin has told us, that there is no intention of ever building this plan out the way you see it. They have to go through these steps to this level of detail, as you can see, for the purpose of, in order to freeze the zoning. Okay? And so I want to make that point crystal clear. Okay? With that being said, I'll ask board members if they have any questions. Ma'am, you have to wait until we, yes.
So, and Madam Chair, I mean, you're also, I think it's important for people to know there are no waivers being requested, there are no special votes or anything like that on this particular. It's a by right submission to us, so we can look at it, but it follows all of the zoning guidelines that are in place right now. I would say, Mr. Griffin, though, that the project that we had a lot of deliberation on and approved earlier for the apartment building on this site did not include, to my memory, 44 and 46 Pleasant Street. So the property footprint is different for this. However, it's still within right. So.
Right. And the addition of the 44, 46 Pleasant Street properties was necessary to make the geometry of the road work.
I see. So in order for you to file a by right plan that didn't need any special approvals or anything, you needed to include those too.
Exactly.
So, to your knowledge, there are no plans or to come before us for a modification of the project that we've approved already, asking for some extension or something along those lines? I'm just curious here.
No, there's no modifications to that plan that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Good, thank you, Madam Chair, no.
I will open it up to the public. If anybody from the public wishes to be heard on this matter, you may go to the podium in the back, state your name and address, and ask your question or make your comment, please.
Hi, everybody. My name's Mary Ann Ford, and I live at 36 Pleasant Street. And just forgive me, I didn't really understand everything you had said about the freezing of the zoning. I guess what I want to understand and is So the plan is to knock down 44 and 46 Pleasant Street? No? Okay. So could you just maybe explain a little, just again, because that's what I'm not understanding.
Sure. Earlier this year, the city changed its zoning. In order for the applicant, Mr. Crowley, to benefit from the previous zoning that governed this property, he had to file what's called a preliminary subdivision plan and then this subdivision plan, okay? And they went through all of this. See, all of this work that Mr. Griffin did basically serves no other purpose than to get our approval, and that approval then serves to freeze the zoning that was in existence before the zoning law changed.
Okay.
Okay, so, and Mr. Beckwith just asked Mr. Griffin a question about 44 and 46 Pleasant Street. And, Mr. Griffin, correct me if I'm wrong, those properties were added to this subdivision, preliminary subdivision, and definitive subdivision plan in order to make this plan work so that the zoning could be frozen. Okay, Mr. Crowley has already received approval from this board for the building that when was that, Bob?
December.
Last fall.
Yep.
Okay, that's all approved, okay? Mr. Crowley simply wants to freeze that zoning that was in place, and that's why all of this is being done.
Site plan approval does not freeze zoning.
I think I got it. Thank you, so there won't be any changes made on Pleasant Street,
No.
right? Is that correct? Is that a correct statement? Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Sure, anytime.
Yeah, that's right. All the preliminary and then the definitives come after. So this was.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Susan Riley, and I live at 38 Pleasant Street. And I guess I understand about freezing the zoning, but I don't understand why in the plan for this project that I saw at City Hall, it says raising of 44 and 46 Pleasant. Can you please explain that to me?
Mr. Griffin?
Yeah, so, when you look at that plan, 44 and 46 are where the road exits out onto Pleasant Street. And, in order to draw the plan, we have to, in theory, show that those buildings are removed. Again, this is a zoning freeze plan, it never gets built, so, Mr. Crowley is gonna tear down 44 and 46. But just for the purpose of accomplishing the zoning freeze, I needed to show a roadway that conformed to all Beverly rules and regulations. And it took that additional plan there in order to make the plan complete. So that's, it's a paper exercise, it's a theoretical exercise, and we're not going to tear down the buildings.
It's kind of a crazy system.
It makes no sense.
Welcome to the law. So this raising that you saw of what, 36 and 38 or? 44 and 46, I'm sorry. It's all theoretical. And it's theoretical for the sole purpose of being able to draw that plan
Without waivers, it's just clean.
to freeze the zoning.
In a waiverless, just.
Yep. Please.
So if those two properties had not been included in the plan, and Mr. Griffin and Mr. Crowley came before us and showed us a plan with a roadway that didn't meet the conforming nature of the zoning.
Subdivision.
Of the subdivision, then we could have denied this. And if we denied this, then the zoning would not be frozen. We don't have any reason to deny this because it follows all of the guidelines that are in place. So, I mean, we need to have a reason for denial. We just can't deny something because we don't, particularly like it or, whatever. We have to have reasons for it, right? So this follows the letter of the law, meaning that we don't have any justifiable reason for denying this parcel as it's designed and built. That ensures that they'll be able to get an approval, and then that approval will freeze the zoning. So they can't come before us and ask for special waivers, or it'd be very difficult or very odd, actually, to ask for all these special favors for something that's never gonna be built, and that would give us the opportunity to say, sorry, you know, so.
Go ahead.
Where is the road really going to be then, if you're not going to?
There isn't, it's all theoretical. It's all theoretical. It's all sort of, I was gonna say pretend, but
It's not,
But there is going to be a real building there.
yes.
some point,
And that's the project,
Real road to get to it.
It's
no.
it's on Rantoul.
on Rantoul, it's a driveway into the property, into an underground garage underneath an apartment building that was proposed and that we approved.
The building has approved, has no connection to Pleasant Street.
Rodney?
Members of the board, Madam Chair, if I could ask a question. I'm putting myself in the shoes of the public, if that's all right for a quick second. This is the first of the preliminaries that is coming before us, correct? The definitive? Is this the first? The previous preliminaries did not have a public hearing, so this is the first time they're hearing of this. We're explaining to them sort of, hey, this is what the law allows. Does anybody feel like, what the heck is going on here? Is this a scam? Is this a way of getting around? Is there a way to explain how this came about to allow this so that, I mean, given Mr. Griffin and everybody else who comes before us will state, this is just so we can do it, so they're being very transparent. But I can imagine they're asking, how does the law allow them to do something like this, and why? Is there a background that we can give them to explain this a little bit more so it doesn't sound like we're just doing something to pull the wool over their eyes?
Well, I certainly hope that nobody thinks we're doing this to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. This is being broadcast. So, and there are ethical obligations with being members of this board. So, I think, Mr. Sinclair, that we collectively are doing our best to try to explain it to them. The law is very complicated, and no disrespect to anybody, but we're just trying to simplify it the best we can, because I understand, we all understand that it's confusing for the audience because they don't deal with this all the time. Can I point them to, you know, we could point them to case law, but my goodness, that's not gonna help them. So I think that the best we can do is to continue to educate, and I think that's what we're trying to do right now, and that we have been trying to do. Well,
Hold on.
so I think that all we can do is to try to continue to explain it, and as more people come to these meetings, and as more questions arise, that we continue to respond and deal with this issue the best way we can, which is trying to educate everybody, ourselves included, keeping it as uncomplicated as we can. And I see our planning director has approached indicating she'd like to speak, which is always welcome.
Darlene Wynn, Planning Director. I can't just sit in the side, I guess. So I just wanted to clarify, too, that I don't think it's been said yet, but this is a part of the state enabling legislation for the Zoning Act. It's been on the books for decades, and I think it's the intent, if I was reading into it, was to protect private property rights when cities and towns enact a zoning change. So it's kind of a little bit higher level background on that.
Thank you. Please.
So will this all be documented? I looked to see if there were minutes online from the last June meeting, and I didn't see any. So will this be documented, what's been said? And I understand that maybe it won't be documented in full layman's terms, but so documented just so as an audience we can go someplace and read what was said so we have a bit of an understanding and it's in black and white somewhere.
Yep. So yes, so the short answer is yes. The longer answer is, we're a little behind on our minutes. We're hoping to catch up on them tonight. That's why the June minutes weren't up online. But the minutes get posted. This is being recorded by BevCam, and I believe they
will
can
be.
show it on their YouTube
Yeah, it's on
channel.
my YouTube channel.
Okay.
So,
And I have one other question, and then I'll sit down. So when you say zoning freeze, does that zoning freeze have to do with specific properties? Or is it a zoning freeze for Pleasant Street? So what does the zone freeze entail? Is it for a certain part of Pleasant Street or a certain property?
it's for a certain.
It's for the
go ahead.
specific, it's for the specific properties that the plan entails. It's not an area, it's just for the properties that are on the plan.
So that's the 44 and 46?
This would include 44 and 46 for this preliminary
Okay.
definitive subdivision plan.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Very welcome. Is there anybody else from the public who wishes to be heard on this? Is there anybody from the public who has more questions about this? Please, if you would go in.
I don't want to be recorded. I don't want to be seen on them. What's up, why?
I need your name and your address for the record, please.
I live at 30 Pleasant Street, but, why are you requiring a zoning freeze? What particular part of the zoning for the central commercial district do you want to preserve? What's being changed? You said there's been a change in the zoning for that district. What is it that you want to preserve for your project out of that zoning ordinance? With the height, the distance, the square footage and all that, and the density? What specifically are you dislike about the change in the zoning that you want to freeze it to what it was before?
Well, I guess I
Be
would,
specific, please. Thank you.
I'm going to answer it generally. Mr. Crowley has put a lot of time and effort and resources into the plan that was approved last fall, and he doesn't want any zoning change, undertaken by the city of Beverly before he has the opportunity to get the building erected. So he'd like to build a plan that he got approved, and this zoning freeze ensures that he has 6 or 7 years to do that.
So can zoning be unfrozen?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, if we're going through all this work and, just to go through the preliminaries of freezing something, so down the line, when the building's built, can it be unfrozen, so then if they wanted to still raise 44 and 46 Pleasant Street to put an access road in, could they do that?
Could they? Sure, right?
It would be a modification to a site plan.
But first of all, we have assurances from Mr. Crowley, the applicant, Mr. Griffin, his engineer, that that's not what the plan is. They've already got a plan that's been approved for the building, okay? So we are comfortable in their representations that there's no plan to build this. That the plan that was approved by us last fall is what Mr. Crowley intends to build. And that the purpose of this, again, with all of the work that Mr. Griffin and others put into this, look at the level of detail, because it's required by law in order to freeze the zoning. And if you've been paying attention, if you're so interested, you'll note that we have received this is not the first of these types of plans to come before us. That there have been several.
We just scheduled 3 more
There's
tonight.
at least 5,
Just
Madam Chair.
scheduled
There's at
3
least
more
5.
hearings for other developers who have the same plan. They want to, same idea, not plan, same idea, they want to freeze the zoning so that they have gone through the steps, or the first step of filing the preliminary subdivision plan, getting it approved, and now they'll come back, just as Mr. Griffin is doing tonight for Mr. Crowley, and they filed their definitive subdivision plan. And again, they make assurances to the extent that that's what they want to do, and tell us that they have no intention of building it, that the plan serves no purpose other than to free zoning. Ms. Riley?
Yes, I understand plans come and go and zoning regulations are modified, but I would like to know if under any circumstance, this planning board would approve tearing down those two buildings to make a road to this new structure.
I think it's, to be honest with you, I think it's either speculative or moot or some combination of the two. Because, again, there's no desire on the part of Mr. Crowley to take those buildings down, okay? He's already got a plan approved for his building. What he wants to do is make sure that he can build in accordance with the previous zoning regulations. He's not looking to change what was approved. He simply wants to assure himself that with this zoning change, that what was approved before, based on prior zoning, continues.
I don't think you really answered my question.
Let me try to, I don't think you have to be an experienced developer to recognize that this would be a very poor use of Mr. Crowley's property. And that's why this is never going to get built.
But is that just Mr. And I never met Mr. Crowley. Oh, I'm sorry. So is that a legal consideration? So, Mr. Crowley says this, but is this in writing? Are there legalities that enforce what is being said, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask. I mean, I'm sure we're all very upstanding citizens, but people say a lot of things, and I guess, are there?
The planning board decision will be recorded at the registry of deeds. This plan will be recorded at the registry of deeds. So there will be certainly a very definitive paper record associated with this application and the board's action.
The other thing, ma'am, is that our hands are tied with respect to this, because what this plan does is it's a plan that meets every regulation, every zoning requirement. It is, as Mr. Beckwith explained at the outset, it is technically a by right plan, because so to some extent our hands are tied.
So, Madam Chair, if I could, I do think, I have to just say, I think that those are very, very good questions. Because we are talking about a plan that's being filed, and we may say that it's in theory, but they could do that if they wanted to, because the plan is being approved. So I guess maybe there's some questions that could be answered for them to talk, not necessarily about whether or not Mr. Griffin and Mr. Crowley are going to honor their word, because we're not operating in that type of arena. We're operating in an arena where there's things you can do and there's processes, and if they want, they can go through them. So what would be, if they decided to build this plan, what would their process be, and would there be review by the community to participate in that? Again, not saying it's a great plan or not, just if you wanted to. Because again, we're talking to folks in the community who are not developers. They don't do this all day, every day. They're sitting here being told there's a plan that's being approved, whether or not it's theory. They're just trying to figure out, could it be done? And if it is, what kind of engagement do we have in this? So is there a process that would have community input if they decided to move forward with this plan, regardless of if it's a great plan or not? I guess that's a question that I'm asking for them, whether or not you're asking it for me, want me to ask, but that's a question that I have. Because this may come up multiple times as we approve these preliminary plans, And maybe we should just have some answer for them.
And I think the answer is that this is a plan that meets all of the requirements, meets all the zoning regulations, does not require any waivers.
No waivers, Madam Chair.
We would be buying ourselves a lawsuit if we denied the subdivision plan. So
So you could do this.
they could do this.
They could do it.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to take the building down, is there a process for taking the building down that,
Yeah, they'd have to get the permitting to do that.
is there a community process in that?
No.
Okay, so they could do this if they wanted to.
There would be a delay because those buildings are old, they're more than 50 years old.
That would be determined by the Historic Districts Commission. That would be determined by the Historic Districts
Yeah,
Commission.
so there is that process, a year delay or something.
There you go.
If they're over 50 years old and are determined to be of historic significance,
A demo delay.
So they don't want to, they don't seem like they're going to, but if they wanted to, they could do that.
But as Mr. Griffin pointed out, Mr. Crowley is a businessman. He thinks financially, he thinks rationally, he thinks cogently, and this subdivision plan is not the best, it's not the highest and best use of that property. It would not be in Mr. Crowley's best interests to build this plan. Could they build it? Sure. What's the likelihood that he's going to build it? Slim to none? Zero.
Yeah, I think we get that. I think they're just asking if he could do it or not.
Okay, anything? Sure.
On the site plan that was approved and then you wrote their letter in December of 2022 for 119 Rantoul Street. Was that a by right approval or did they need any, is that by right?
I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Well, because they're concerned about the zoning being changed, so if the zoning was by right, that means the public had no say, other than the site plan. So
The
was
public
that by
had,
right?
the pub,
I think that the way to answer that is to say that the plan that the planning board approved did not require any zoning relief. So it conformed to zoning.
right.
The plan that was filed in December was a preliminary subdivision plan. That one had no waivers in it. So what Mr. Crowley has proposed does not require zoning relief. It's possible that the city could change zoning, sometime in the next few years that would impede his ability to build that building. This zoning freeze protects his ability to do that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The reason we saw 4, 5, 6 different proposals from developers come in was because there was talk and a discussion, and ultimately some zoning was changed in the city. And during that time, developers who had been planning on building or moving forward with projects at some point in time said, okay, well, we should preserve our rights or freeze the zoning. And we have this process that the Massachusetts general laws have outlined, and that is our ability to file before new zoning comes into effect. So they filed these before, I believe, there was any decision made by the city about what the zoning changes would be. They filed the preliminary plans. We reviewed those. They were by right, and we moved all the way through the process. So they followed the plan that the legislature, as Ms. Nguyen mentioned, put in place to protect property owners, whether it's a big developer or a small property owner with a house, to make sure that they have protection from a municipality suddenly making it impossible for them to put an addition on their house or to do anything that would require special permission and zoning relief. So,
Just one more question. So the bottom line, will there be, is Meineke staying, or is Meineke, is it being sold and there'll be an apartment or a condo unit being put there?
The plan that was approved last fall, basically, the demolishes or raises the Meineke building and puts I think it was approximately 50 to 60 unit apartment building on that site.
Okay, thank you. And with that being said, those, number 44 and 46 Pleasant, is that property being sold also to the developers that are going to put the condo complex in?
44 and 46 Pleasant Street buildings were not affected by the plan that was approved last fall.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public who wants to be heard on this? Any further questions from members of the board? All right, is there any reason to keep this public hearing open? Public hearing open?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, then I would move, or I would ask for a motion to,
I move to close the public hearing, Madam Chair.
is there a second? Seconded by George. Discussion? None, all in favor?
1 second, Nate.
Whoop,
Raleigh and Nate can't vote.
Oh, yeah.
that's right. Okay, so all in favor?
Wayne, myself.
It's a,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.
Ken.
5-0. All opposed? I should ask that anyways, right? So, okay, 5-0. Okay, we've closed the public hearing. Let's move on to the merits of this. I'd welcome a motion on this, please.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
we're accepting the definitive subdivision, yeah?
Approving it.
Move to approve the definitive subdivision plan application, address 119 and 119 R Rantoul Street and 44 and 46 Pleasant Street. The applicant Wilso Ventures LLC, Tiny Ventures LLC, 44 Group LLC, and 46 Group LLC. I don't know if I have to read that. The applicant, no.
I have a motion by Mr. Gomes. Is there a second? Seconded by Flannery. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Before we call the next public hearing to order, I think it's Attorney Samasco, right, who wishes to be heard on this?
Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair. Miranda Samasco from Glovsky & Glovsky on behalf of the owners of the property off of Trask Lane, Abbott, Reeve, and Stanley Reeve as trustees. And as members of the board are aware, this matter was scheduled for a public hearing by the planning board in order to, I'm going to say, check on the status of the ongoing definitive plan, which has been the subject of many previous proceedings with this planning board and also with the land court. And the public hearing was scheduled without the applicant, or in this case, or the property owner, having an actual request before the board for any modification to the pending definitive plan. And since the public hearing has scheduled, the owners and their representatives have spoken with, or have submitted to the planning board a request for the public hearing to be continued in order to give the owners and their prospective purchasers time to actually submit a real plan for the board's consideration. By a real plan, I mean a plan that the new buyer might actually modify to reflect their concept for potential redevelopment of this property. Right now, the buyer is still in the process of due diligence, so we are not aware of what their concept actually is for this property, or how the subdivision plan that the board has previously seen might fit with that concept. And so respectfully, we have asked that this matter, we've asked the planning board to consent to a further continuance to give us a specific date certain by which to file a plan that would be either a plan that is has been developed with a new development in mind, so that it's actually a real plan. And in that case, we hope that a plan would have less waivers than the plan that is currently before the board, and that the board could deliberate based on actual information and an actual project. And furthermore, if the developer or the prospective buyer does not move forward with this plan to purchase the property, then we have represented on behalf of the property owners that they will file a revised subdivision plan in keeping with the land court decision, and that we would do this by a date certain, which we have suggested to be October 31st of this year. And so respectfully, that is the basis for, or our request is for a continuance of this hearing without opening the public hearing this evening.
I have no problem with that. I think it makes all the sense in the world to give a potential new purchaser sufficient time to file, call it a good plan, one that isn't hurried to get it in by a certain date. I frankly would rather see the purchaser or whomever ends up filing this take their time. I would suggest for board members that we give the applicant until the end of November to file the plan, and that we put the matter on our agenda for our December meeting. How would that work for you, Attorney Samasco?
Madam Chair, that would be acceptable and quite reasonable. I thank you for that consideration.
And just for the record, we have not opened, this public hearing was not opened. So this would be a continuation of the public hearing to our December meeting, giving the potential purchaser, and if the potential purchaser doesn't buy, then the current owner more than sufficient time to, again, develop a good, solid plan versus one that's submitted under time constraints. I just think it makes sense. This is a really important project.
Yes.
And I think with all sorts of implications and consequences and that sort of thing. So I think my preference would be to continue, give them another month, and then put it on our agenda for our December meeting. Thoughts?
I concur, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board members?
Just a general question. This obviously predates my time on the board. I know some of you were there. This is something that originally came before the board in 2016 and was voted on in 2017. And at the time, my sort of read on the record is that the board was doing its best to work with the applicant in, a constructive manner to work around some inadequacies in the 2017 plan, which, were then challenged in court and struck down over 2 years ago. We're now almost 7 years on from when this started, and we don't have a real plan, in Attorney Samasco's words, for this property. I guess I'm wondering why we're having this level of patience on this plan when they've had now 2 years to put together a more complete plan, a real plan that addresses some of these deficiencies that the board found in 2017 and was willing to work on.
Well, the case, I forgot to bring my notes on this, but the case was remanded to this planning board by the land court.
Yep.
So to some extent, the ball was in, and is in our court to deal with this issue of the waivers. And that's what we were planning to do tonight.
Yep.
And then Attorney Samasco came forward with a potential new buyer and asked us for the courtesy of giving them sufficient time to submit, again, I sound silly saying this, but a really good plan, a solid plan. And I think it makes sense to try to avoid further litigation by us dealing with the plan from 2 years ago and trying to deal with the waivers and all of the issues that the land court raised, and instead deal with the land court's remand by allowing the applicant or the new purchaser to file a plan by the end of November.
Okay. It seems to me that the applicant has had ample time to address some of these issues that were cited in the court's decision and, were, concerns of the board at the time. I'm happy to obviously defer to the will of the board. It just seems to me that, we're gonna end up giving them a 14-year zoning freeze, when it never needed to be that lengthy of an extension.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I think George makes some terrific points, and I concur with the frustration in that. But I think what's different at this point with what you're suggesting, Madam Chair, is that there be a date certain for public hearing, and that, there should be, if there isn't a plan filed, then we're talking about what's before us right now. And it gives the applicant plenty of time, and in fairness, I think also probably protects us from some sort of legal action during a time when there's a purchaser, potential purchaser looking at the property.
Yeah, and frankly, I know Attorney Samasco raised the legal issue as to whether or not we could even deal with the issue. Attorney Samasco, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, Attorney Samasco, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you interpreted the land court's decision that it required, I think it was your position that the board could take no action until your applicant, your client, filed some kind of modification or some kind of new plan. I read it a little differently and thought we did have authority to act on it, but this type of, and so did our city solicitor, this avoids that conflict because everybody would be in agreement that it makes sense to push this out to November 30th for the filing of a plan and then set it down for a hearing or deal with it at our December 5th meeting.
December 19th.
Is it December 5th?
19th.
19th. I don't know why I think December 5th.
December 19th.
December 19th.
Would you like a motion, Madam Chair?
I would love a motion, thank you.
To continue the public hearing for the definitive subdivision plan at Trask Lane, the applicant trustees of Holly Hill Associates Trust, for our meeting on December 19th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Two in opposition. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2. Okay.
5-2.
For those,
Madam Chair, excuse me.
No, I'm
I'm
sorry.
not able to see the votes. So I'm not sure what just transpired with the vote.
I'm sorry, it was 5-2 to continue this public hearing to December 19th.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, members of the board, for your consideration and also for your courtesy in allowing the hybrid meeting this evening. That is much appreciated.
No problem at all. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I want to make sure that the members of the public who are here on this matter understand what we've been talking about, which is the land court remanded this case to this board to deal with I don't want to get into the weeds on the decision, but the land court had concerns about the board's authority to deny waivers. And there was some concern on the part of Attorney Samasco that we did not have authority to move forward and act on the definitive subdivision plan, that we did not have authority to sort of correct the lack of authority that we exercised a couple of years ago. The city solicitor disagreed, I disagree, but nonetheless, Attorney Samasco has indicated that there's a potential new purchaser, and that new purchaser would like the opportunity to come before us with, I think, a better plan, a more comprehensive plan, one that wouldn't require, I hope, the number of waivers, the 10 or 11 waivers that were requested the last time. I think it makes sense to, one, to avoid further litigation, hopefully. Two, to get a better plan that everybody can review in a timely manner. And so that's why we made the suggestion that they have until November 30th to file the new plan, and that we will discuss it at our December meeting. And if by chance they don't do it, then we will act on this one, trying to correct the issues that the land court raised with our vote back, I guess it was 2017? Yep. So.
They've already started some construction.
Exactly. They've already
I know. Okay, this is not a public hearing. If you have concerns about activities going on there, I would suggest you call, what, with the building inspector? Because he's the
There's
zone.
inspectors going out tomorrow to see what that's about.
We have quite a few people here from.
I understand, but I really do believe that the public is better served by doing it this way than us acting on a plan from a couple of years ago.
The activity that you're seeing out there now is part of the due diligence process for the purchaser, but there is some concern that people have raised that it's going,
It's going overboard.
yeah, so we have inspectors going out tomorrow.
There's wetlands in there.
Okay,
part
this,
of it.
again, it's not a public hearing, so there's no public comment here. Okay.
December 19th.
Tonight, yes, no, on December 19th, yes.
December 19th.
This is not a public hearing, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Election.
When is election day?
That's election due, December, November.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Madam Chair, you?
Okay, could I have a motion to reconvene our meeting, please?
So moved, Madam Chair?
Sec-
So I moved it, Ken. George seconded.
Moving on.
Okay, I've got a motion by Flannery, a second by Gomes, all in favor? All opposed, motion passes unanimously. All right, we've reconvened our meeting. Folks, I'm going to ask you to take your conversations outside, please, as we continue our meeting. Thank you. I need a drink.
No.
All right,
No.
Just put December 19th on your calendar.
so anxious to...
Can't, it's like it never-
All right.
Can you see it? Can you?
I have lost my place. All right, our next agenda item is the preliminary subdivision.
Discussion on,
What's that?
number 4, is there any discussion on post?
Hearings. Oh, yeah, no.
We're good with that, though. I think we're good with that. Never mind, I'm sorry. I didn't interrupt you.
Yeah, you're messing me up.
Oh, yeah.
Number 5, though.
Okay. You all set now?
I'm fine.
All right, the next agenda item is a preliminary subdivision plan review of 63 Sturtevant Street. The applicant is it Symes? Symes is how I say it. Symes Development and Permitting LLC. Application shows a 175-foot-long extension of Sturtevant Street as a private way with a hammerhead turnaround that will create 3 new buildable parcels in the R10 zoning district. The floor is yours, Mr. Griffin.
Great, thank you very much. Just as by way of background, I just wanted to point out that City Councilor Rotundo was able to arrange a neighborhood meeting last evening. Mr. Ruda and I, and I think most of you know Mr. Ruda.
Nice to see you again. It's been a while. It's been a while.
I was gonna run down the street and get some bourbon for that coffee.
I would have welcomed it.
I know. For those of you who are new to the board, Science Development has been building residential buildings in Beverly for probably 40 or 50 years, perhaps longer.
1986.
There you go. Almost 40 years. And builds a nice product, good company, you know, does what they say, kind of a developer, and is able to sort of carry out their projects, I think, pretty quickly. So in this particular case, this is a small project for Science, but we're dealing with about a 1 acre parcel of land, about 48,000 square feet, so that's 1.1 acres, and it's at the end of Sturtevant Street. So just from the way of, you know, this land out here is the Beverly Golf Course, here's Elliott Street, here's the Cummings Center over here, here's Echo Avenue that goes up, and there's Sturtevant Street that comes down. There's a few residential properties lower on the hill here with a driveway access out through Sturtevant here. I'll talk about that a little more as we go along. But we met about 15 neighbors from the Sturtevant Matthews area last night, and we had a good conversation with them for about an hour. That was very helpful, I think. This is sort of zooming in now on a fairly recent aerial photograph of our parcel. The black line outlines the parcel here. Here you can see Sturtevant Street with some residential houses here. Matthews Street comes up along the back, and some of these houses up here are Matthews Street. And these two are 66 and 64 Sturtevant Street. That's their house numbers. This one over here is 323R Elliott Street. This is that driveway that comes up that I referred to. The site is obviously almost entirely wooded with the exception of that driveway running through the property. There's about a 30-foot grade change from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but there's a drain that comes off of Matthews Street and discharges onto the property here. So this runs overland downhill towards Elliott Street here. There's a paper street. So if we go back to our city GIS map, this gray strip here and here indicates a paper street. Certainly no build out there. This is Greystone Avenue. We're not doing anything on Greystone Avenue. It's a little hard to see on this plan. This is Greystone. This is the layout of Greystone right here. I would say most of these houses on Sturtevant are probably 1960 kind of vintage, and some have certainly been improved and remodeled since that time. But, that's roughly the age of the neighborhood. I think there might be some older houses in there too, but that's what we have. From again, the existing conditions plan showing where we did a number of test pits on the property. The purpose of the test pits was to assess, what kind of soil conditions are we going to run into for construction. We found most of these test pits went down 5, 6, sometimes 8 feet. There was some ledge in some of the holes, but all in all, it looks like a ledge that can be broken up reasonably easily. And I think we're going to be able to dodge ledge for the most part throughout the project. There's some existing utilities here at the end of Sturtevant Street serving houses here and here. There's some pressure sewer lines that come up through this area, water lines that feed those houses as well. We'll be extending those utilities, as we'll see, back towards our 1 acre parcel. So our proposal is, again, to create a large sort of hammerhead turnaround area, lot 1, lot 2, lot 3. These, we're in the R10 zoning district. We need 100 feet of frontage. We need 10,000 square feet of area, and we're about 13, I think, 12,000, 13,000 square feet there. So they're a little bigger than needed, and again, all the the frontage comes off of the hammerhead kind of layout here. This dotted line is an easement that goes down. It's an existing easement that serves some of the properties a little further south on the hill. And we've also identified in this sort of left side of Lot 3, a drainage easement. Well, I'll be showing you an infiltration system that will go in that area. And this is also where that drain from Matthews Street comes out and heads downhill. So here's the same aerial plan with the layout. As you can see, the hammerhead here going into the woods. This is, I think it shows up a little bit better on my utility plan, but the hammerhead, as defined by AASHTO, the transportation organization, is sort of this, yellowish orange line here. And then the pavement actually will go much further back and it'll go further up here as well. So it will provide a very generous turning area for emergency vehicles, delivery vans. We did hear last night that, when the Federal Express guy comes, he often blocks some of the neighboring properties here. So I think that the ability to turn around, provides significant relief to the neighborhood. Right now, it's very narrow down through here. You've got that sort of driveway that goes down. There's really no opportunity to turn around in this land at all. Each house will have a connection to the water and sewer system. We're showing a hydrant to be located in the, sort of central to the cluster of houses here, extending and tying into an existing 6-inch water line here. The length of the water line extension is about 325 feet. We also are proposing that each house will have a one pump chamber attached to it to pump sewage up into the pressure line that exists in Sterling Street over here. This is about 230 feet of force main work to make that particular connection. And electric telephones all overhead in the street, so we would extend those lines to the 3 houses as well. We're showing, pick up some roof runoff on this house and put it into a dry well to absorb runoff water. And then once we get to this hammerhead area here, this sort of slopes downwards, so we're going to propose a catch basin here and a catch basin here. And we're going to pick up that water and bring it to the back of Lot 3 to an infiltration field. You can see we did some test pits in that area there. We got some pretty good soil conditions. And in very heavy rainstorms, some water will exceed the capacity of the infiltration field and discharge and join the drain that comes off of Matthews Street here and continue on down towards Elliott Street. Overall, we haven't done detailed drainage calculations yet, but we'll do them as part of the definitive plan process, certainly, and be able to demonstrate that we meet DEP stormwater management standards and reduce the peak rate of runoff and the peak volume of runoff, as is typical in all of our Beverly projects. We are looking for a few waivers, and the waivers are listed here on the plan. I'll just run through them sort of quickly. One waiver is for a preliminary subdivision plan to show all trees on the lot greater than 6 inches at breast height, diameter, DBH. And of course, this is again a pretty wooded lot. I'm fairly confident this land was used for agricultural purposes at one point in time, but it's just overgrown with locust trees primarily, and there's nothing, there's some native trees in there as well, nothing really of significant value from a landscape point of view. So I don't think we're going to be saving any existing trees really as part of this project. So we did not map each tree, but we'd be happy to look at that perhaps on a sidewalk in the future. In regards to the layout, we're proposing a 40-foot wide right-of-way instead of a 50-foot wide right-of-way. Back to the, well, I think you can see it here. So, we've got 20 feet of pavement here and 40-foot width of the right-of-way. That compares to a 50-foot requirement in the Beverly subdivision standards. 20 feet of pavement matches the width of the pavement on Sturdivant Street now, and that compares to a 32-foot wide requirement in the Beverly subdivision regulations. So we're really just conforming with what's out there. The length of a dead end, as you know, subdivision regulations require a 500-foot length of a dead end. Right now, we're around 780 feet from Echo Avenue to the end of the improved portion of Sturdivant. We're proposing to extend that for another 175 feet. the benefit of what we're doing is we're going to add a significant turnaround here to basically, think there's no longer a, impossible place for fire or delivery trucks and the like to get in and out of. So, that's our waiver on the length of the dead-end street. I also want to point out that Beverly has a requirement that when you're more than, I think, 500 feet on a dead-end water line, a dead-end water main, that you need to put sprinklers in those residences. And so we are adding a hydrant here, but we will also be adding fire suppression, residential fire suppression sprinklers in those houses in conformance with the fire department's requirement. Beverly subdivision regulations require a circular cul-de-sac here. We're having obviously a hammerhead instead, really a better use of the space in this particular area. Also sort of conforms to some of the older subdivision plans that have been approved in this project. There's been, I know this land has been in front of the planning board from time to time over the last 10 to 20 years, but one plan from 1987 that's worth sort of just taking a quick glance at is this plan, which shows, again, sort of the similar length of extension of Sturtevant Street. This is actually 202 feet plus another, looks like another 50 or 60 feet, so probably a little bit longer than what we're talking about. This is about 260 versus our 175 feet of extension, showing 1, 2, 3, 4 lots up in pretty much the same area that we're proposing 3 today, and a much smaller hammerhead type turnaround than we're proposing here. I think this was 1987. The easement, we have just a drain easement across lot 3 here, and this is, I think, 15 feet wide versus a requirement in subdivision regulations for a 20-foot wide easement. 15 feet, I think, matches the side yard setback requirement in the R10 district, so that's why we're using 15 there. We've got, I think, a 6-inch water line versus an 8-inch, but of course, the existing line is 6 inches, so there's no point putting an 8-inch extension on a 6-inch line. We're not proposing sidewalks. There's no sidewalks on Sturtevant Street. We're proposing bituminous curb to direct the water into the catch basins instead of granite curbing. No street lights, no street trees, and no fire alarm system. So I think, when you look at these small developments that have been coming through the planning board the last few years, I don't think nobody's putting in a fire alarm system. Everyone's got cell phones these days, and street lights and street trees are really unnecessary in an area that's so densely wooded around it, and each of these houses will have, typical type of residential sconces or things outside the front door to provide sunlight to the driveways, and I think it'll be adequate. So, but of course, this is a preliminary plan. We're interested in your comments. We're interested in the neighborhood comments. We're interested in all the comments from the city departments, and so with that, I'll stop talking, start answering questions.
Questions from members of the board?
So, thank you, Chair. So you talked a little bit about the public meeting last night. Obviously, the good news about, some relief in terms of delivery trucks and things like that. Were there, anything of the streets? I notice I'm always somewhat concerned when, the dimensions of the streets, continue to be narrow, but we're talking about the characteristics of this, of the roadway as it exists right now, coming up to this point.
Yeah.
So you're not narrowing it. I saw something 20 to 22 feet. Is it 20 to 22 feet? Is it 22 feet? Is it 20 feet? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, there probably is some variation as we go up and down Sturtevant Street. I mean, it's an older street, it's got repairs, and sometimes it probably does look at 22, but I think the nominal size is 20 feet, so that's what we propose to extend in this particular area.
And what's the curbing leading up to, on Sturtevant, leading up to this? No curbing.
Right. I do want to point out something that did come up in the neighborhood meeting last night. There's you can't get your garbage trucks down to the end here, so as a result, some of these houses further south of the property bring their trash cans up here in front of these 2 residences here, where the trash can actually get to. And I think they drive down or back down the whole way and drive back out. But in any event, sometimes people leave their trash cans here for a very long time, or longer than in this neighborhood, I guess you might say. And so we're going to add a sort of a strip of land over here so that these people can bring their trash up right next to the turnaround area, and it'll provide some relief to the residents as far as the current imposition that they suffer through. And there are also some concerns about, the traffic and the speed of travel along the gravel driveway and coming up down Sturtevant Street. So I don't know what we can do necessarily about trying to slow them down, but we're certainly open to that comment as well, and we'll do what we can to try to keep speeds down on Sturtevant Street.
Mhm. You also mentioned that you made the dimensions of the hammerhead, larger, and why really is that? To make it, not necessarily just to make it easier for the trucks and things like that, is that a benefit to the people who will be, owning the three different parcels?
I mean, I think you can see, for example, with this house here, we're sort of bringing the driveway straight in, and it's above where that hammerhead really needs to be. But I think that, we could have brought the driveway down a little closer to the apex or the intersection point here. But I think, this provides a little more room for snow storage, it provides a little bit more room for turning around, and I just think it's a better design, so that's why we did it.
And there are no other street lighting on Sturtevant?
No, I think there are some streetlights on Sturtevant. I don't mean to say that there aren't any out there. I just didn't think that we necessarily needed it at the end here, and maybe that's something that we're gonna have to reconsider. But right now, the plan doesn't show streetlights.
Thank you.
Other questions, board members? Ms. Flannery?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Griffin, did the neighbors have anything to say about the lighting, or why there wasn't any at the meeting
No,
last
I don't
evening?
think lighting came up as a concern at all. Yeah.
Did the sidewalks come up? I'm a granite sidewalk, curving. I'm a granite curving as opposed to the bituminous.
So their primary concern is a childcare center down there,
At the
and
end.
people falling down the street because they're late for work.
Really?
Really?
I have some
Really?
experience with said childcare center. It's actually it's a cut through as well, so
Really, Joe?
what doesn't
The
show
concrete
here is
driveway?
that driveway connects all the way down to
That
Elliott
little
Street.
tiny access off of Elliott Street?
Yes.
Yeah, no, as you know, I'm a walker.
Yes.
The number of times I've almost been hit on that hill going up the hill to that daycare is crazy. Parents are brutal, man.
I mean, it's narrow. That's narrow.
So here's our 1 acre again, and this is the driveway that is referred to coming up, and then goes around this house and up this way. And you're right, at times, apparently, we did hear last night that some of the parents dropping off or picking up are going faster than they should be down Sturtevant Street.
Never may, I swear.
I'm sure what.
Is that concrete driveway, if you're coming up Sturtevant, is that where the two posts are? And it looks like it's really private? I
Yes.
went up there to look at it, but.
It's all the way down the end. It's straight off the back of the street,
Okay.
and it kind of curves around to the left.
Bob, can you turn to the page that has your list of waivers? And I'm trying to get a sense of, not the waivers, but the hammerhead. It looks like within your hammerhead, you have a smaller hammerhead. It looks like
Right.
it says NFPA compliant hammerhead, and it shows a 20-foot wide. What exactly is going on? What are you planning within the boundaries of the larger portion of the hammerhead? What's gonna be paved, what's gonna be not paved?
Perhaps could have made the line a little darker, but this is the edge of the pavement here, so this driveway goes to lot 2, and then it comes up here, goes up over there, comes all the way down, follows along here, and then obviously you're at the driveway for lot 1. Same thing on the opposite side, the driveway comes out, goes down, and you've got this long extension to the lot 3, actually the lot line's way back here. And the highlighted area is the National Fire Protection Association suggested dimensions for a hammerhead turning area. And again, my point was really that we're providing a bigger hammerhead as required by the NFPA.
Okay, so that's simply illustrative purposes?
Correct.
And everything within that is going to be paved?
Everything within what?
The bigger.
Well, I mean, yes,
It's
that's
the
what I
dashed
mean,
lines
within
that
there,
are not-
yes.
Yeah, that's all paved.
This is the right of way, this is where, this is the NFPA requirement, this is what we're proposing.
Are there reasons to do a hammerhead versus a cul-de-sac besides what I presume is probably saves some land and is less expensive?
I mean, Beverly has a requirement, I think, for what is a 120-foot diameter in, a cul-de-sac, so this is probably, let's see, that's 80, 100 feet. It would, it would be a big circle here, and it doesn't sort of fit well with this long, sort of narrow shape of the property that we have to work with. This, I think accomplishes the goal of the cul-de-sac, but less pavement, less runoff, better layout, given the existing site conditions.
But again, my concern, and I think I raise this every time we talk about hammerheads, is that the ends or the prongs of the hammerhead become driveways. Additional, not driveways, additional parking for cars. And it looks like what you're planning to build is some pretty significant sized houses here.
These are pretty modest houses, actually. I mean, these are, 2,500 square feet plus or minus, maybe it gets up to 3,000, but these are not big footprints. These are 40 by 40, 42 by 46, 36 by 36. Jeff, do you have any comments on the building size?
42 by 46, isn't that about 3,200 square feet?
No, you have the garage.
Yeah, the garage takes out a lot of that space. But anyway, so I think 2,500 to 3,000 in that range.
I think the largest house on there is 2,800. And, frankly, we're showing for illustrative purposes only. We'll make a decision on the houses, when we go to market. This is not a neighborhood that's conducive to the big houses that we usually build.
Mr. Griffin, beyond where you've got the curbing, so by the house on lot number, I guess it's 1. Will that be grassy or will that be paved?
So it'll be
I mean, grassy or gravel or, because there seems to be a small area that's to the right of the curbing to the end of the, I know, I'm making no sense at all.
Point me with the spot you have in mind.
Here's the curbing. Here's the,
Yep.
here's the curbing.
Yep. It'll be- it'll be-
What's going on in here?
That'll be
I guess?
lawn.
That will be a lawn,
Yep.
okay. So then the size of that hammerhead is effectively reduced.
Yeah, I mean, we're not making it to the edge of the right of way, and we normally don't make the edge of our pavement the same as the width of the right of way.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin, so I know this isn't a big thing having to do with your 3 lots here, et cetera, but I am concerned about the neighborhood and the traffic flow and the impact that has, and the information about the existing concrete driveway. That's the source of the speeding traffic that comes around. So that's coming onto this area. Is there anything that could be done in design here to slow that traffic down?
I don't think we have any opportunity to sort of stop that traffic from existing, but I suppose that, we could discuss possibly a speed bump or a speed table or, some way of trying to discourage, mothers from stepping on the gas pedal.
Your dads do it. Just throw that out there.
But something like that might be, of interest to slowing traffic down in both directions, especially to, yeah, that area.
Drive like your kids go to school here.
George, yeah, I just,
I've seen things, man, I'm telling you.
and I can't imagine it on that, it looks to me like an oversized driveway, so I can't imagine.
Well, also an area where there isn't very much right now,
Yeah.
and there's gonna be more, so.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think, you know, this way being extended would be probably safer, because that narrow part is one of the kind of worst parts of that driveway, but I mean, I think people also know it's a cut through to Elliott, like, I wouldn't blame it all on the moms and dads, but, you know, there's definitely, it's like this weird little thing that we're now broadcasting to the dozens of people who might watch this someday.
Wayne, did you have a question or a comment?
Well, my first comment is I certainly wouldn't know anything about driving with excessive speed to get to a meeting that I was late for. I wouldn't know anything about that. My next question is there gas hookups here? Will you be hooking gas up to these
By the
residents?
time we're building these with the new code, everything's electric.
That pretty much answers that question. I was gonna ask next about energy sourcing for the buildings, if you thought about that.
Energy what?
Energy sourcing, like on-site energy, solar, for instance.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough room here.
You have roofs, right?
Yeah. The problem with us doing solar roofs, we don't get the credits. Only the end user gets the credits. So, you know, with the new code coming in, we have to, everything has to be solar ready. We have to have EV charges, and all of that. But, you know, solar panels are popular because of the tax credits. But as developers, we don't get them.
Thank you.
Mr. Griffin, you talked on your requested waiver on number 3 for the dead-end street. Improvements will extend Sturtevant Street by approximately 180 feet for a total length of 980 feet. So that would be all of Sturtevant down to McKay?
No, that would be, going back to our.
Is it from Echo?
Echo to the end of the improvements here. So right now it's about 800 feet to here, we're adding 180 to get to 980.
Okay. You also note approvals can also deed egress for the new residents to Elliott Street. Is that, what do we reference? I'm not clear what you're referencing there.
Could you repeat yourself? I didn't
I'm
understand.
sorry. That same requested waiver says approvals can also deed egress for the new residents to Elliott Street. Does that mean access to that existing concrete driveway?
Well, I think there already is the right to access that driveway from this land. And likewise, I think the people that live south of the property have a right to continue to use that driveway. But it does seem that phrasing, it does say approvals can also deed egress for the new residents to Elliott Street. I don't necessarily see these homeowners going this way down Elliott Street. I would much rather they stay on Sturtevant and go out that way, given the narrow nature of that driveway. I don't know if we can stop them from doing it. I don't know if we have the legal right to do that necessarily. but-
No, I'm just asking what
I think that's what that would be referring to.
Okay. I will tell you that I always have a concern about when sidewalks are asked to be waived. It seems to me that these days, we're asking people to walk more. People have more cars, so they're parking in the streets. And we don't want to put up any streetlights. I have real concern about safety. I keep thinking in 30 years, whomever is sitting on this board is going to look back and go, who the heck, why did they think no sidewalks was a good idea? Because in essence, what we're doing is, and I think we see it in neighborhoods all throughout Beverly, that cars are parked on the streets. And so that if there are no sidewalks, they're going to be parked up against. So in essence, what you're doing is asking anybody walking in that neighborhood to basically to be walking in the middle of the street.
We'll take a look at that.
I agree
Thank you, I appreciate
And I
that.
agree with you, Madam Chair, on that concern. And always has been.
You realize it's just 180 feet of sidewalk to nowhere.
I know, but it's better than nowhere. It's better than,
And not having any.
Right? It's no big deal.
Yeah, Madam Chair, and I'd say that with the concerns that we're talking about with the traffic coming around that bend, that is the most dangerous spot on there too.
It'll be on the definitive. I've heard from the three of you.
I'll put in a word for the streetlights then too. I think the streetlights are important.
yeah, and I would agree with you, George, on that. I think streetlights, I don't think you can rely upon
Somebody's home.
exterior house lighting to,
We'll put one at the bend there, I think that'll actually cover it, so.
I mean, particularly if that concrete driveway is used as a cut-through, from a dark perspective.
what does that lead to, that existing, I mean, is it to Elliott Street? Is that what you guys?
Yeah, it's right to,
But it's considered a driveway?
and it looks like a
It
driveway.
looks like it's on this guy's, property. I don't know.
Madam Chair, if you drove by it, you would think it was a driveway.
You think you were
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that.
I did see a deer. I was walking my kid up that hill. I saw a deer in the woods down there.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
How wide, Mr. Griffin, do you know how wide that concrete driveway is? Just out of
Yeah,
curiosity.
it doesn't vary, but it, I measured on the plan, it's, 13 feet, 12
Yeah,
feet,
it's narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's a car coming, you're in the woods.
That's why I would never, I would even think of using it.
Ken, does the planning department have, an opinion as to which is preferable, hammerheads or the cul-de-sac?
It's gonna be determined by the fire.
Fire department? Okay.
And to that end, I did receive a message from Fire Captain Crayling today asking for the swept path diagram showing the tires as they move back and forth.
Your auto turn drawings.
Well, yeah, we just haven't drawn it yet, so I didn't have a chance to do it before the meeting tonight, but I know we've used this hammerhead shape many times and we can make it work, so we'll provide that to Captain Crayling. And to you.
Anything else?
I mean, I just commented on the curbing, but I always do.
Mm,
My preference is always granite. As opposed to.
it's nicer.
It's
It's nicer
cleaner
looking.
looking.
Doesn't crumble like the,
And it lasts.
Look at that.
And the snow removal, Mr. Griffin, is that they, you mentioned snow relative to the hammerhead?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of room here, along the sides for snow storage here and here and even on the side too. So I think there's plenty of room for snow storage.
To go back to the point about the size of the hammerhead, I'm sure that the fire captain Crayling will want signage up there saying no parking up to a certain point to allow
Signage?
for the turnaround to be open for emergency vehicle access.
so Mr. Griffin, and I'm sorry, but this hammerhead thing is, if we return to that hammerhead, and when you came over to me, I pointed to the right-hand side of the hammerhead
Yeah.
and the curbing. If we're looking at the curbing on the left side, everything to that left of that curbing is going to be lawn, right?
Right, that's correct.
So in essence, again, while you've outlined in dark black a large-sized hammerhead,
Yeah.
the effective size of that thing gets significantly reduced because of what will be lawn.
Yeah, that's the right.
I mean, we could make it bigger, I suppose, but, it's 20 feet wide, it's, where it necks down, it's wider here at the intersection. We got a 30-foot radius, it's
Environmentally friendly.
certainly compares, favorably. I think Beverly subdivision regulations require a 25-foot radius, and, you know, at intersections, this is 30, so it's a little bit bigger. I don't know.
Why would you want more pavement?
I don't necessarily want more pavement, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I'm looking at this hammerhead thinking, oh, it's big, it's great, there'll be movement for this, you know, plenty of access for emergency and fire and trash and whomever else needs to get in there. But when you actually look at what it will, or when you perceive what it will be after it's built, it's actually a heck of a lot smaller than what is outlined by the heavy black lines. And I just, again, I mean no disrespect, it just seems a little bit misleading to me, that's all.
Maybe it'll be a little more clear when we provide the swept path diagram to be able to see how the truck, you know, moves through there. The truck's 8 feet wide versus a 20-foot wide roadway, so there's plenty of maneuvering room, and it's not a busy area, you know. Dead end of a street.
What are we asked to do tonight? I don't want to- Huh?
After this,
What's that?
I mean, after this.
Yeah.
Minutes.
No, I mean as far as this.
Oh, it's in.
Recommending the plan. Oh, we have to.
Okay, you can give such preliminary plan approval with or without modifications or suggestions after the board's review of data and comments, if available, from various city agencies listed. Such approval does not constitute approval of the subdivision, but facilitates the preparation of the definitive plan and securing final approval thereof.
Okay, so we would vote as to basically approve or disapprove it, and then deal with the waivers as well. As part
With
of
or
it.
without modifications.
With or without.
So,
We can approve it just as is because the waivers are listed, but we can modify it based on a couple of modifications that we listed, which
correct.
street curbs
Correct.
and lighting.
Okay. Anything else?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
so we don't have comments from anyone,
we did
so.
not get comments from anyone because it's preliminary plan
Yeah.
yet, so we haven't received, no one's provided comments yet.
What's the implication of the approval of the preliminary? I know it's a dumb question, but I'm cooked right now, so.
Arlene? Yep.
So you don't even have to approve the preliminary plan. You're basically just making recommendations to incorporate into a definitive plan.
Okay.
You can approve it, you can deny it, well, you can't really even deny it, or you can not approve it. But it's essentially just to make recommendations as to what you want.
So we don't have to vote on this?
You don't have to.
We've already made sort of recommendations, right? Okay. So are there any other sort of thoughts or recommendations that board members would like the applicant to take into consideration in filing a definitive subdivision plan?
Madam Chair, we're looking at the sidewalks, looking at the curbstones, the streetlights.
Yes.
Are there other elements?
Potentially, some, addressing the traffic flow from the, concrete driveway as it turns onto, the roadway,
It's the other way that they were complaining, coming in from Echo.
coming in from Echo and then coming through that way.
Right.
It's the speed there.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm still.
Going by the existing houses.
So some sort of, but you'll, and it would be, I know I would like some thought and hopefully some sort of presentation on some way to slow down the traffic. Yeah.
Madam Chair, we also brought up signage, so I don't know if that works into that a little bit.
Works into what? What Derek is saying?
It's like a street calming one.
And if we're gonna do that, they would have, I think I would push for, if we're going ahead with the idea of a hammerhead, the signage that parking isn't allowed within the, within the
We've done
hammerhead.
before.
Hmm?
On Livingston Avenue, as we did before.
Livingston Avenue,
Livingston
yeah.
Avenue.
Anything else, guys?
I'm comfortable, Madam Chair.
You all set?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
For preliminary, it seemed very detailed, so, yeah.
Just look at the, is that the front page?
That's what, I've seen it.
Yeah, exactly. And then ultimately, this is grass over here, which gets built into their lawn. This is, you know, significant, that's all grass. So you basically have, it's, you know.
A little bit more on the shoulders.
Yeah.
I think it'd be on too.
And it looks like this ends up being, I don't know what part of this is paved, but it's a heck of a lot smaller than, that hammerhead is a heck of a lot smaller than it looks. But we will let the experts weigh in on that.
Yeah, I would imagine that's gonna be a fire department comment
Yeah.
for signage in the hammerhead.
Okay, minutes. Minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at November 15th, 2022?
They weren't submitted, Ellen.
Here we go.
They were the minutes submitted
I
for
don't have,
review.
I don't have those.
They were
The
two.
minutes submitted, Ellen, for review were January 18th, 2023, and May 23rd, 2023.
Those are the ones that I've
Those are the
got.
2 minutes that we have,
Okay,
that we have to
well then
review.
let's deal with those. Do we have, let's deal with January 18th, 2023. Do we have edits, comments, questions, suggestions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
I've got
Madam
42
Chair?
comments.
Madam Chair? 42 comments?
Yeah.
From whom?
Lots of Derek. Lots of Mr. Beck. What's that?
She just put them in,
All right.
that's why.
Are they substantive, or are they, mostly Scrivener's, or?
Some of them are substantive, actually, and I did have a question about a paragraph. It just seems, it seems very, the paragraph on the discussion on the CC2
What page,
district.
Terry? What page?
I'm sorry, let's see. Page 5.
Okay.
Right there.
The first paragraph on that, in the section 1, or I, creation of a CC2 district, it just seems that the minutes just, other members politely refute the notion during concern. It just seems like some sort of a,
Subjective.
yeah, it just doesn't seem like an accurate sort of factual, this was who brought up this point, who brought up this point, who brought up this point. It was a very important, sort of intense meeting. I think, those of us who were here remember it, and where, it wasn't like they were too, anyway, I just didn't think this was representative of the meeting, discussion itself. Members discussed the mechanisms used by developers that have altered previously submitted and improved plans that were not by right. I mean, I just, some of it, anyway, I just think it has to be rewritten, and I didn't have the time to provide a rewrite to it. I tried to provide in other areas my feedback, and I tried to be very objective in it. some of it is also for clarity, and some of it's Scribner's.
So are you thinking that we should put this on hold and give you or someone else the opportunity to?
They probably need to, if we have a record of the meeting, then I think that it would be someone listening to that part of the meeting and writing it. I'm happy to do it. If there's a recorded, if there's a BevCam recording of it.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
They have all the, because they were here then.
It's the greatest hits one, I think. It's the
Yes,
greatest hits.
this
of the
was on
planning
YouTube.
board. I think it's the most
I
watched.
don't think it made the greatest.
And I'm happy to do that, but I didn't have time to do it.
No, that's fine, and I'm not trying to dump it on you, so, okay, so why don't we put those on hold then?
Because, Madam Chair, I had a couple, and mine were, I don't know if Derek had the same thoughts or noted a couple of things. Mine were on the motions that were taken, and one was a motion on, it was on RHD.
Which page?
It is page 6. It's the RHD motion, and I just wanted, it was a point of clarification, is that the Sinclair, a little further down, right there, Sinclair amends the motion,
Go further?
right down, it's right there, right above inclusionary housing. I just need a point of clarification in terms of what the vote was, what we voted on, because Rodney indicated his vote, and then right below it, Derek proposed something, so what did we adapt relative to the RHD?
And that's the same meeting, correct?
Same meeting, same vote. It's the same, it was the same issue, it was the RHD, and I'm just looking for the clarification.
So I think what the issue was,
What did we approve?
Rodney had done 50, Derek
Yep.
amended to 45.
Yes.
We voted on that amendment to the amendment, and then we
Does the-
voted on the underlying amendment. So I think the order is incorrect. So
That's what I'm questioning.
I think that's right.
Does
So
Rodney,
I don't think we voted on Rodney's motion first. We voted on Derek's amended version of Rodney's. I think there were two
Where
consecutive
it says
votes.
motion 8-0, I think that should go,
should that be
With backwards.
withdrawn?
I think that actually went after, because I think we voted twice in a row. Someone could literally watch the.
I have all of this cleared out from the city council presentation. Okay, like in what I gave them, I think I have all the orders in the order the motions in the order that you gave them. Better, so that.
Oh, that was in the synopsis that you wrote?
Right.
Yeah, you did the synopsis of the meeting in the discussion, yeah, in the
And-
vote.
That's what I thought, thank you, Darlene.
Yeah.
And the other question I had was on page 7. It was Rodney's motion on the, changing the affordability threshold, and it's just taking out in the second line of his motion, he adds and eliminate the off-site housing, to take that out of the motion, because it was a totally separate motion that we did below.
Oh,
Right, that's
okay.
literally the next one down.
Where's that can move to?
you have good memory.
Move to off-site units section?
I've got it right here. I've got the whole thing for you, Ken.
I'm just making a comment so that I know what the,
It's just taking that, because below that, and the next vote was the off-site units. We voted separately, Madam Chair.
Guys get great memories, I'm telling you.
Thank you, buddy.
I have no clue as to what.
Thank you. That was that on that one, yep.
Okay, so we'll put the January meeting minutes on hold. How about the February minutes?
No, the only ones we had, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, May, I meant
don't
May.
have-
I know you did no February,
and we're missing a bunch from the
And
guy
the
leaving.
only, this is more of it was more of one element I found, Madam Chair, on page 3 of the minutes. It was the motion for the special permit at Ellingwood Court in Congress Street. And it was more of a clarification in that we voted the special permit, the motion was mentioned twice. And it's just a matter of looking up, that adequate and appropriate, number 6, that adequate and appropriate city services are or will be available for the proposed youth should be a period. And then go down to move to grant, either, yeah, take that and further the grant the special permit, but,
That should be number 7.
but no, that should be, take that whole section out, and then down, Derek said, move to grant the special permit. Move to grant the special permit, take that in further, that the board grant the special permit with the following conditions, take that thing out.
Leave that whole
Yep.
thing.
And then go down to move to grant the special permit, then below that with the conditions. Just make it clean like the other,
It would be like that.
and then see it, where all the stuff, like motions, move this all out here. Beckwith, move to grant the special
Oh,
permit with the conditions, just so it's clean and separate, because it was such a distinct vote.
So we're taking that out. and
Yep,
then-
just move it right down.
So the findings and then the
The
motion.
findings,
Yeah.
period, like here, it's the findings here and then the motion.
Yep.
I've included it all here, so you can do it, whatever's clear for you.
But I believe I did say that move that we find,
Yes.
and then, so.
The findings, you speak to the findings, Derek.
Findings.
Then you finish the findings, then you move to grant the special permit
But the
with the
vote,
following
the
conditions.
vote was to corroborate or agree that that's our finding, and that's our
Yeah.
motion.
You make the findings, then you vote on the special
Our
permit,
grant.
with the conditions being number 1 and 2. You good? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And those were the 2 minutes that we had, Ellen.
All right. Do we have any new or other business?
You want to
Do we-
vote on the
do we
May
wanna vote on
23rd
those-
as amended?
Yeah, as amended.
As amended, we can do that. I'd welcome a motion.
To approve the minutes of the May 23rd, 2023 Beverly Planning Board meeting as amended.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
Hooray.
We did it.
We did minutes.
We did,
One set.
what's that? We're there, we're
Better than
getting there.
New or other business?
I have one.
Okay.
Set the date for the November meeting. There's 2 dates on the website of, I forget what exactly
November
they
14th and November 21st.
Yeah,
When is Thanksgiving?
The 21st, that
the
week.
week of the 21st. So
So that would be a
the 20
Tuesday night, so that would be like 2 days
2 days
before Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Or we could do the 14th of November.
I think for
14th.
better attendance, we should go with the 14th, because, people have started to travel by that
This will
Tuesday.
also be when, no, never mind, we did it for December. Never
What?
mind.
Yep.
Never mind.
Good. Do you want to set the date for the 14th, Madam Chair?
People okay with that? I mean, I'm presuming nobody wants to come here 2 days before Thanksgiving. Okay. Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah.
Okay, we need, motion?
Move to set the Beverly Planning Board meeting for November 14th, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion passes.
That's all I had.
I meant to welcome Nate at
Madam Chair,
the,
may I ask you to interrupt for 1 second?
yes, of course.
Was this included for us to set a public hearing?
Oh, that's not
What
a,
discussion
I'm sorry. Yeah, I missed that on there. That's my fault. They cancel,
So we need to set our
no,
public.
we don't need to set anything. It was just more informative.
Council set the public hearing for September 5th at 8 p.m.
Yep, it's already been
God,
set.
they love
When is
late,
it?
they love late public hearings, 8 p.m.
September 5th?
You know,
at
it won't
8 o'clock?
actually be at 8, too. It won't actually be at 8. They'll
No,
push it
they're
back
good
a
about
dozen
stuff
times.
like that.
September 5th at 8:10, Ms. Nguyen? Thank
Yeah.
you. September 5th at 8:10, excuse me.
8 p.m.
8 PM. Oh, 8 PM, okay.
And we'll find out when
Okay, and you should have all the information, I think Ken and Darlene
This is this one.
included it in our package, and obviously it's an important
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
piece of legislation, as they say.
Yes.
But before we
Madam Chair.
adjourn, I wanted to welcome Nate. We're glad to have him. Tell us a
Hi.
little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I moved to Beverly 2.5 or so years ago, from Somerville. Live with my wife in Prospect Hill, and yeah, about a year and a half ago, I just started to develop an obsession on urban planning, and yeah, so that kind of led me to this, and
Great.
yeah, met George at the Run Club at Gentilly. Yeah, found out that there's an open spot.
Excellent.
Yeah. So nice to meet you all. This is
Welcome.
a great first meeting.
What do you do for work?
So 2 weeks ago, I was laid off
Oh,
with
wow.
half my team. But before that, I guess I was working at Autodesk doing kind of architecture, design, software writing.
Very cool. Well, welcome, we're super happy to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks.
Super, super happy.
I might want to point out that tonight's meeting was a little unusual. We spent
What's
30
that?
minutes explaining to the public.
Oh, I did notice that, yes.
Just wait till they find out that Trask Lane is a zoning freeze. The Trask Lane is a zoning freeze.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was a little unusual.
Yeah.
Anything else? All right. Let's adjourn.
Motion to adjourn? So moved?
Favor?
In.
All right, we're done. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ellen.